Then on Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the 2023 Citrus Bowl matchup between the LSU Tigers and the Purdue Boilermakers. Both teams have had great seasons getting to this point. Both teams are runner-ups of their respective conferences, LSU of the SEC and Purdue of the Big Ten. Should make for a good matchup. We'll go over a full game preview and prediction on this match here today, starting with your team trends. LSU lost to Georgia in the SEC title game 30-50. Was the final score there. So obviously Georgia dominated in that game, and LSU really never stood a chance from the start, but at least the Tigers, they put up a fight for sure. I mean, they never gave up, and they scored 30 on a strong Georgia defense. They come to this matchup 9-4, ranked 17th in the country. As for Purdue, they lost to Michigan 22-43, kind of in a similar fashion. Michigan controlled the game for the majority of it, or at least in the second half. Michigan really took control. Purdue kind of hung in there for a good chunk of the first half, but in the end, Purdue took the loss, 8-5 on the season, and they prevailed out of the Big Ten West, which was just a really messy division this season. I mean, there really was no standout in that Big Ten West this season. You had Purdue, and Illinois was up there as well, but I mean, after that, I mean, it's either Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin. Yeah, just a messy division this season in the Big Ten West. But for Purdue, I mean, to come out on top, that division definitely showed that this team really has come around the past couple of years. I mean, this is the second straight season that Purdue is in a pretty good bowl game. Games be on Monday, January 2nd in Orlando, Florida. Kickoff is 1 p.m. Eastern. Spread's going with LSU by 14.5. So the Tigers are favored by a good couple of touchdowns here in this matchup, which once you look in depth and see what's going on here with Purdue, you'll see why, and we'll get into it in a sec. But over-under is 56. FBI is going LSU as well, 68%. So the Tigers are favored pretty handily in this matchup. And this is also the first game between LSU and Purdue in college football history. Stat comparison, LSU is 46th in points per game, 41st in points allowed. So really, I mean, this is a balanced team between the offense and the defense. They're pretty good on both sides of the ball. They're 42nd in pass yards a game, 45th in rush yards. And then for yards allowed, they are 51st in passing, 55th in rushing. And as for Purdue, they're 73rd in points per game, 61st in points allowed, 16th in pass yards a game. This is a strong passing offense. And when this team has had Aiden O'Connell as the quarterback, he knows how to throw the ball. He's an extremely accurate passer. You know, he has thrown a few too many interceptions this season, which has come back to bite the Boilermakers, but he has thrown for 3,500 yards this year and 22 touchdowns, over 13 interceptions. So obviously he's thrown some picks, but I mean, he can make some really good throws, and his lead receiver, Charlie Jones, has received 1,300 yards on the season and 12 touchdowns. The big reason why LSU is favored by so much in this matchup is because Purdue, they're not going to have Aiden O'Connell or Charlie Jones in this matchup. The lead receiver and the starting quarterback are both gone for Purdue. So for the Boilermakers, I mean, this team is going to be pretty shorthanded, especially on offense. That's something to keep in mind. And I mean, they got Maccabee in the backfield, who's been the top rusher, but this backfield still is 101st in rush yards a game. But yeah, Maccabee's been fairly decent this season, 900 yards, 9 touchdowns. He hasn't been bad, so at least they got him in the backfield. But yeah, this is going to be a shorthanded team for Purdue. Recent matchups, LSU lost to Georgia 30-50 in the SEC title game. They lost to Texas A&M on the road on November 26th. 23-38 was the final score. So, I mean, Texas A&M is much of a disappointment as they have been this season. I mean, that's just a team that you shouldn't lose to, as they were 5-7 this season. They beat UAB 41-10, beat Arkansas by 3, 13-10, and also had that huge win over Alabama 32-31 in overtime. That was the signature win of the season for LSU, and that's how they won the division. I mean, if they would have lost that game, Alabama would have been in the SEC title game, and there's a good chance that we would see the Crimson Tide there's a good chance that we would see this team in the college football playoff in Alabama if they would have beaten LSU there. So at least the Tigers can take some pride in that. They kept Alabama out of the college football playoff this season. As for Purdue, they lost to Michigan 22-43, beat Indiana 30-16, beat Northwestern 17-9, took care of Illinois 31-24. That's how they got into the Big Ten championship game, is beating Illinois. Fighting Illini, if they would have beaten Purdue there, they would have been in the Big Ten title game. So for Purdue, a huge win there against the Illini. Yeah, but they did lose to Iowa 24-3. Your key points: LSU 9-4. They retained a majority of their key players. Jaden Daniels is coming back, and he's also coming back for next season, it sounds like, which is going to be huge. He is overall a great passer, 2,700 yards, 16 touchdowns, over 3 interceptions. He doesn't turn over the ball too often. He's also the lead rusher on this team with over 800 yards and 11 touchdowns. So having him back going into next season, I think that's going to be a huge return for LSU. And I mean, who knows? The Tigers could potentially be a dark horse contender in the SEC next year. But for Purdue, the Boilermakers are without Aiden O'Connell and Charlie Jones. I mentioned that, their starting quarterback and lead receiver. And Charlie Jones isn't just any lead receiver. He's received over 1,300 yards this season and 12 touchdowns. That's not going to be easy being without him in this matchup. But at least they got Devin Mockabee, their top in rushing, over 900 yards and 9 touchdowns. But once again, there's a lack of depth on this team. And it looks like the quarterback position, it's going to be Austin Burton, the UCLA transfer, who is going to be making a second start of the season for the Boilermakers. So something to keep an eye on there, but obviously it's going to be different because, I mean, Aiden O'Connell's been the starter for this team for a long time. So, I mean, it's going to be a change here for the Boilermakers, and it also doesn't help that Purdue's head coach, Jeff Brom, has taken off. He is headed to Louisville, so Purdue doesn't have their head coach they've had all season. Things are just kind of a mess right now for the Boilermakers, but otherwise, it has been a great season for them up to this point. And really, the past couple of seasons, this Purdue team has really come around. That said, let's get the prediction here for LSU and Purdue coming up here in the Citrus Bowl. And I'm going to be going with the favorite here for sure. LSU 35-17. I think LSU wins this game, and they should win this game if everything goes right. I mean, when you got Jaden Daniels, you got this team coming back, Brian Kelly as the coach. He's excellent coaching in bowl games and in these situations. So I'm going to go with LSU here, 35-17. I just think Purdue being shorthanded, their head coach took off. I just don't know if Purdue is going to be able to win this game with that considered. And LSU, it doesn't help that they're also a really talented football team. I probably would say that LSU is the more talented team here as well, even if you had Aiden O'Connell and Charlie Jones in. So in the end, I'm going LSU here, 35-17. I do think the Tigers win by at least a couple of touchdowns. So I'll say LSU 60-65%. Over-under is 56. I'll take the under, and LSU to cover the spread in the end. But let me know your thoughts and comments below on this matchup, and I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.